This is Jake Neal, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
This is the Power of Pro Wrestling, a podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the show.
And welcome to a very special Hell in a Cell prediction show for the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast. This is your host, Robert Rad, and for this prediction show, I'm going to be joined by my guest, Mr. Cornbread Chris Heineken.
Cornbread's in the house, fresh baked, twice baked Sundays. But Hell in a Cell, Sunday night, live exclusively on the WWE Network from Boston, Massachusetts. 3 Hell in a Cell matches, but before we even get to that, we got to get to some other business first.
Yes, most definitely. We've got a lot of great matches that are happening at Hell in a Cell. But before we're going to get into the matches, I want to kind of start about the gimmick about Hell in a Cell. Are you excited for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view this Sunday? Just kind of what's your thoughts on the pay-per-view overall?
Well, I think overall you'll hear my thoughts going into it. What do you think about it? You will hear my thoughts later on throughout this whole program, but what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I'm not very excited for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and I should be more excited than what I am. There's not really a match on the card that I care a whole lot about seeing, and that's sad considering I am a very passionate, hardcore wrestling fan, so it's kind of sad for me to say. The problem inherently I hate about the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and I'll say this about any gimmick pay-per-view, is when you have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, the gimmick match is kind of expected more than a surprise. Like it's more a necessity than. Like my example is, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this, but I want it to be a surprise that it's going to be a Hell in a Cell match, not that it's a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, so we're definitely going to have a Hell in a Cell match. I want the Hell in a Cell gimmick to have a purpose to it, to be the blow-off for a feud. And we're going to kind of discuss this for the Hell in a Cell matches. I want there to be a purpose and a reason for there to be a Hell in a Cell match. Not just because it's a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, we have to have the match. Not that it's a necessity for a pay-per-view, but it's something that belongs, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
No question about it. I totally agree.
Okay. So let's get into the matches. We're going to start with the ladies, and we're going to go Dana Brooke and Bayley. So what's your thoughts on this match? How have you liked the build-up?
Well, you know how I am. In order for me to believe the build-up, you have to believe in the performance. And Dana Brooke has stepped up. I have to give her props. She's finally stepped up. I think she should, if she's able to get more wins than Bayley, I think she should be a prominent role or prominent figure inside the title mix, depending on what happens in the championship match, which we'll talk about. If I have to go in one certain way, this could be a breakout for Dana Brooke. But barely, I'll say survival, Bayley wins this match. Survival.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Bayley. I'm not a big fan of the build-up to this match. It kind of looks like this match was just trying to resolve a fluke that they did from a couple weeks back. Like Bayley and Brooke had a match, and Brooke got a roll-up in a pin, which was meant for her to have her foot on the ropes on Raw, but it just didn't happen, so they had to kind of rectify that, so they had to give Dana Brooke a win, and then Bayley had to kind of sell that with her shoulder, so that's what they did. And then this past Monday on Raw, they had an arm wrestling match in Minneapolis, which didn't go over well. And obviously, it's not going to go over well. This is really a different time for women's wrestling, and they're no longer divas. They're not the eye candy. There's actually something to them. And I mean, I love Bayley. I love Bayley in NXT, but I think she has really been butchered on the main roster because I've said, and I wanted to discuss this with a female guest for the Power Pro Wrestling podcast. I think Bayley is the next John Cena, is the female version of John Cena. Not necessarily in the sense of she's going to have a divided crowd reaction and get that polarizing reaction, but she appeals to a lot of age demographics. if you've watched NXT, you know who Izzy is. She's a super fan and really into Bayley. So the connection with the little girls, it's just, and even guys, men our age love Bayley, but I think she's been butchered on the main roster and mishandled. But I think she is going to win this match.
Well, who do you think should step up in this match? Do you think both should step up? Or do you think now could be the time for Dana Brooke to strike? What do you think about that?
Well, ultimately, it's going to see where they go with the title match, which, like you said, we're going to talk about later. Or they could always go with Dana Brooke to fight Sasha Banks, but we've seen that before. I don't care about that match. Bayley, I want to see, because Bayley can work with Charlotte. She can work with Sasha. Because leading to her match last year with Sasha Banks in NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, she fought Charlotte, was one of her contenders. That was kind of the build-up. So, Bayley will work against either one regardless of who gets the title. So Bayley needs to win this one. They really need to step up with the booking of Bayley and help her out, and she needs to get the win on this one. Let's go to the tag team match as non-title, and let's go to the club, which, as you know, is Anderson and Gallows, and they're taking on Enzo and Cass. So what have you thought about the build-up to this match?
Well, Enzo and Cass are the rookies in this case. Anderson and Gallows are the pros. They are the veterans. The way that Anderson and Gallows struck is the way new contenders or possible contenders for titles should come after anybody that's a threat. Thank goodness they got away from the comedy. Leave the comedy to the comedy people. Stick to what you are at best. Strike, pound, win. SPW, strike, pound, win. For Enzo and Cass, granted, they're excellent on the mic, no question about it. But inside the ring, the one that's really been shining the most is Big Cass. Enzo really needs to step up just a step higher. If I really have to pick a winner in this match, I'm probably just going to go I'm not going for promos or anything, but just because of extra intensity. Depending on the tag team title match, extra intensity, I'm going Anderson Gallows.
Okay. Good pick. I am glad that Anderson and Gallows have stopped doing the comedy act. And like I've said before, they are funny guys. I'm sure in real life, I've not really met them or talked to them or anything, had any real conversation with them. But I like that they have moved away from the comedy act and been the killers, really the roughneck bats, if I can say that, just tough guys. So I like that they're going in that direction. And I think they're another team that has been mishandled. Like Bayley on the main roster or Raw has been mishandled. I feel Anderson and Gallows have been mishandled.
Anderson and Gallows got the worst, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like the effect of them being WCW talent. Like it's been said in the past, like Vince, if it's not a talent that he makes, he likes to bury and remind us about how inferior they are. So, I mean, it almost seems like Anderson and Gallows, they were big in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Vince is like, oh, you're big in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let me just bury you in WWE then. And so, I mean, that's what I hate for them. Because I really like them as a team. I think they have a lot of potential. I really wanted them to win the tag titles, but that didn't happen. I've been wanting
that for the longest.
And so I like that you're picking them, but I'm going Enzo and Cass. They just seem to be the hotter team, and the speculation and the rumor is that they are going to be set up to get in the tag title hunt here the next couple months, maybe around January. So I don't see Anderson and Gallows winning this. If they do win this, we'll see another match maybe at maybe Survivor Series or at the Roadblock pay-per-view, and that's where Anderson and Gallows will lose to Enzo and Cass.
Well, let's bring out that point. If you're picking Enzo and Cass, what will they win by?
I think it would be a pinfall. I think we might get the rocket launcher on that one. Although I don't know if we've seen that move here a whole lot. So
yes, we have.
So I mean, here recently is what I'm saying.
Well,
they've used it before.
Yes, but that was my question to you. So you think they'll win by rocket launcher, pinfall?
Yeah, that's what I think they probably would do if they're going, since they're having a tag match, and I think they're going to win. I think that would probably be how they're going to win. Now I could be surprised; they could do something different, but that's how I think they'll win.
Now that would be the curveball of the century. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, with that, let's move to the tag title match since we're talking about the tag teams, and it is the New Day, the WWE World
Raw
Tag Team Champions. Yeah, I should say Raw, since this is a Raw pay-per-view. And they're taking on Cesaro and Sheamus, the oddball team. So, kind of what's your thoughts on the build to this match?
Well, I think Mick Foley really set this up and set this one up perfectly. Go through WWE history, and of course, you and I discussed this off air a couple of weeks ago. And everybody's talking about the whole Demolition and New Day style records. I've actually had an opportunity to really take an in-depth look at both of those. And the results are really a little bit close to one-sided than the other. As to who had, because keep in mind, the quality of a title reign and the value of a title reign is determined by quality of win and by quality of opponents. Quality wins for New Day have been Anderson Gallows, Usos, and the Dudleys. Demolition have been the Rockers, Hart Foundation, Strike Force. And what many would say was one of the best eras of tag team wrestling in the 80s. So if history really dictates itself, as much as I probably would go New Day just for the sake of February, as most people already know, for the sake of February, most people say, hey, let's just go New Day just for February purposes. I got Cesaro and Sheamus, and surprisingly enough, I read a poll that actually was against New Day going into December as the tag team champions. They have Cesaro and Sheamus winning this deal. And based on Monday night, I cannot argue with them. Because I thought New Day all the way. I did. But based on what happened Monday, I was like, oh, okay. This is typical Raw throwback. Cesaro, Sheamus may be the spoilers. I got them picking, but barely.
Okay. Well, Cesaro and Sheamus, this isn't obviously anything new. It's the odd tag team that has to work together, the odd couple, if I can use that term. Now, if there wasn't one key point that wasn't been brought up or hasn't been brought up the past several weeks and months about the New Day, I could say Cesaro and Sheamus could win this. And I do think they will win in the future, but I don't think it will be after this certain thing happens. WWE have constantly mentioned every single week the Demolition record that you have pointed out. I think they're going to let the New Day break it, and I know you don't care because, like you said, the title reign has been determined by the quality of opponents and stuff like that. But just for the record's sake, I think they're going to let New Day break it, and then they will lose the tag titles. So that's why I say Cesaro and Sheamus aren't going to win it now. I do probably think in the future they will, just from the simple fact, like you said, history does repeat itself. If you've seen the Matt Hardy MVP, you've seen, like you said, Cena Michaels. There's been a lot of
Cena
unlikely.
Nexus,
yeah.
Cena Batista.
Yeah. You can say Cena pretty much anybody's been tag champ.
Well, throw this in there. Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Stone Cold, Dude Love. Stone Cold, Undertaker.
Yeah.
That's why I feel the odds are in Sheamus and Cesaro's favor.
Yeah, and that's why I said I definitely agree that they're going to win the tag titles, just not now. I think this program might go out until Roadblock, and then because I think at Roadblock the record will be broken and they can drop the tag titles.
Well, who do you think? Well, let's really get to that question since you brought it up. Who do you think should break the record?
Well, I mean, New Day is going to break the record. That's just it.
I'm talking in their title reign is what I should have said.
Who should end their title reign?
Yes. If the record's broken, who should end the title reign afterwards? Or should the title reign be ended at the Royal Rumble in San Antonio?
I would say almost hold off to the Royal Rumble since it would be so significant and it'd be in front of a lot more people, and I think you would just get a louder pop, I think, of someone winning. But with the record just being broken and December, I would say at the Roadblock pay-per-view it needs to be broken there. I'm going to say maybe Enzo Cass. Let Enzo and Cass beat the New Day.
Wow. That's a bold prediction.
Well, that might be pulling the trigger a little too quickly, though, but I think December, I think they're going to let them just, like, if you look at, say, Nikki Bella kept saying Divas Champion, breaking the record of AJ Lee's record, and then look what happened, just probably the day after the record was broken, or 6 days later, it happened. So that's what I'm saying. The record's going to be broken. Then the pay-per-view, I think, will probably happen, and then that's what's going to happen.
Well, also keep in mind there is only two records that cannot be broken.
Yeah,
and that's Bruno's record, and that's Fabulous Moonlaw's 28-year record. Now those cannot be broken.
Yeah, because that nowadays no one wants to see a champion for that long. Plus, you're not going to have someone wrestle that long. So,
and yeah, that's significant. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm saying. It's going to be new. I'm picking the New Day. They're going to win. Their act has gotten stale, and I do want to see the titles come off of them. But just for the simple fact that until the record's broken, that's not going to happen. I feel so. New Day is going to keep it. Let's go. Okay, now let's go to some of the singles championship matches. We're going to go to the T.J. Perkins and the Brian Kendrick, which is for the Cruiserweight title. What do you think of the build-up here in, like, the Cruiserweight division overall?
It was best, and yeah, I'm probably going to shoot a lot of crap here when I say this. Cruiserweight division was best in the Cruiserweight Classic. You had your best matches. There was really no holdback point. Coming to the main roster is a lot different. Performing in front of an audience that is, you don't know if they're into it or if they're dead. It's tough for the Cruiserweight division right now in WWE, especially the rebranded Cruiserweight division now that their Cruiserweight title is under a WWE name, rather than just taking it from WCW. It's a much different ball game here. And with TJP and with the Brian Kendrick, as we all call him, experience rules. They both excellent in submission. Both of them. Top notch. But there's been a little bit added spark to Brian Kendrick's game that I've kind of really been noticing just off of naked eye. I really have noticed that he's got that little extra ump that you need to be a champion. And that's a mean streak. TJP, excellent. Excellent worker. Excellent in the ring. Excellent world travel. Both of them, they're pretty much dead even. But if I have to go with a winner, I say new champion off of experience, off of mind games. Kendrick's learned from the best. He's learned it from Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens. He's learned it from a lot of guys that he has worked with over the years. I'm going Kendrick. He's the new champion. And bottom line, I say he wins it one of two ways. I say he wins it with either the ropes or he wins it, via his brand new submission hold.
That bully choke or the captain's hook, as they're calling it?
Captain's hook. I say he wins one of those two ways. He's that much of a veteran. He's got this. Yeah,
I agree. And but the Cruiserweights, to add on to that, they've just worked well, or a lot better in NXT in the Cruiserweight Classic than they have on the main roster. I like the Cruiserweights in a smaller ring, and I think NXT uses a smaller ring than the main roster ring and the Raw ring. And because, to me, if you have less space to work with, you can go faster, and it just makes it more interesting. And the Cruiserweight Classic was interesting. TJ Perkins, I know, wasn't probably intended to win until it came down to the wire that they found that Ibushi wasn't signing with them, or Zack Sabre Jr. wasn't going to sign with them, because those two were the favorites of the Cruiserweight. All right, so with them not wanting to sign full-time deals, I think they went with their safe option at TJP. Now, I'm a big fan of TJP because I've watched them being Puma and then Suicide and then Manic and his stuff in TNA, so I'm a big fan of TJP. He's just not translated well, I think, to the main roster. They've not written him very well in his dialogue. And I think they've really they've neutered the Cruiserweight division. What I do like what they're doing with the Cruiserweight division, they're trying to make it feel special. They give it a different presentation, like the ropes are different.
Canvas.
And just everything is different about it. So I do like that, but they're not letting them turn loose like they need to.
Exactly. And to me, I that's where I feel that WWE has become the new WCW in that respect.
Well,
because and this is why I brought this up. Because in WCW's Cruiserweight division, this is where a lot of people don't know. But Jericho and the late Eddie Guerrero and even Mysterio would tell you. In the Cruiserweight division in WCW, not only did you make the Cruiserweight title competitive, but you added more prestige to the TV title and to the U.S. title. Those 3 championships in WCW during the 90s were held by Cruiserweight guys. Look at the spectrum now. Even in the ruthless aggression era, yeah, there were Cruiserweight guys that actually held mid-card secondary titles in WWE, like the Intercontinental and US. They elevated those titles. Not so much the case here.
Yeah, and also the placement on the card of where they've been placed in the wrong spots. The Cruiserweights need to be early in the show when the kids who are watching the show are still up and they can see, because
should they open? That's the question.
Well, I mean, that would be a great way, because I would have to go back and watch a lot of Nitros to see if they let the Cruiserweights open the show, because
not necessarily. Some of them do. Sorry.
That's fine. But you always want to leave a good first impression. So having a Cruiserweight match, hot and heavy, fast, would be a great way to open the show instead of doing a promo. You can go straight to the ring and start hot with the action, and I think that would be a good way. But to get to my prediction,
go for it.
I think with Kendrick, his story's been interesting. He's getting older. He's like 37, 38. So he's getting into the twilight of his career. So it's like almost as like this aging veteran is like, can I still go? This is my last opportunity. I have to seize it. So I like that about Kendrick. That's made him interesting. So I do think maybe we do see Kendrick win the title potentially on Sunday. Maybe by cheating just because he is such a desperate man, and maybe that's how they change the title. I don't hate TJP, but I think they do need to change the title to make it more interesting. And they've already got, you can have TJP get a rematch, or you've had Rich Swann beat Kendrick on Monday. So you've already got storylines set there. So, I mean, if you make the title switch, you're already set. If you keep it on Perkins, you could go with Swann and Perkins, but just with Kendrick losing, and I could see him winning the title, and sometimes that does happen here.
Well, let me ask you one quick question right here, right before we move on to our next match. And you mentioned something earlier concerning the whole Cruiserweight deal in TJP, and plus international guys not signing with the company. You mentioned that earlier. Maybe I may strike a little fire into a lot of people when I ask this question, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask the question as a journalist, as a sports writer. Do you think WWE wants to make that Cruiserweight title only for the U.S.-based athletes and U.S.-based competitors rather than a lot of foreign and international talent?
Well, I mean, if you
that
look,
may strike hot, but I have to ask the question.
Well, if you look, who's the champion right now? It's TJ Perkins. He's Filipino, so I mean, it's not a U.S.-based guy, but necessarily.
But the majority of his career has been in the United States. That's why a lot of times he is affiliated with the United States, even though he's Filipino.
Well, I mean, he does compete a lot in the U.S., and I mean, I don't see that necessarily being a problem. I don't think that's going to matter.
I don't think it is.
So, I mean, I think they wouldn't have a problem. But let's move on to some controversy here. We're going to get to one of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches. Sasha Banks, Charlotte. So, a question I'm going to ask for these next 3 questions, and we're going to discuss this in detail. I know we're running a little long on this, but that's fine.
I love this podcast.
I think it's been really interesting, but let's go Sasha Banks, Charlotte. This is going to be inside Hell in a Cell. This is an historic match. First off, let me be controversial. Does this match belong inside Hell in a Cell?
Yes. And my reason being, not just for historical purposes, of this being the second ever, as you would say, the first time ever this is happening in WWE as far as women competing inside of a cage is concerned. All women. But I'm saying this because of the feud that has been going on, and to me, the storyline that has dominated Raw more than any other storyline. It belongs in Hell in a Cell for 2 reasons. And I'm not talking just because the women are there. Because bottom line, I don't care which gender you are. You deliver top-notch performances, and you deliver Monday Night Raw, especially in the main event with a 10 on the scoreboard. Hey, that's another open door opportunity. That's one. However, For safety purposes, perhaps not, but we all know why you got in this business. We all know the risk. We all know the takes. So to answer your question, it does belong because to me, it's the dominating storyline right now in WWE. It's literally been the most talked about. No offense to the list. The list comes second, only because it's entertaining. And the list is most talked about. But dominating storyline, competitive storyline, I have to go there. Dominating. Number 1, I got Sasha Charlotte. Number 2, I got KO. Rollins, Jericho, Triple H. I have to go. Bottom line, yes, it does belong. It's the dominating storyline. And it's to end it between both of them. It has to end. Why not end it in Hell in a Cell?
Okay, now who's your pick? Because before I get some hate from what I'm about to say.
Well, if I really have to pick, I say the undefeated streak, pay-per-view streak, comes to an end. With the injuries and all, it's too hard to pick. I'm going Charlotte, but barely. I say the pay-per-view winning streak stays alive.
Wow, that's a bold prediction there. Okay, so you ready for my thoughts?
This is an opinionated show. It doesn't matter.
I'm going to get some heat from the ladies, and I probably won't get a date for a while, but I'm going to say no, this does not belong in Hell in a Cell.
Go for it.
Not that I'm against them being in Hell in a Cell, but you're making this match to be in Hell in a Cell just to make history. Hey, that's not a reason to put a match in Hell in a Cell. I'm not against the ladies being in Hell in a Cell if the story dictates it. Now, they have been fighting a lot, and you can make the argument that that's the reason it needs to be in Hell in a Cell. To me, there's not a valid reason for a Hell in a Cell or a cage match. If you look at the psychology of a cage match, you do it as a blow-off, and it is there to prevent interference. There hasn't been interference or any reason to have this Hell in a Cell match. That's why I say no. I feel they're just doing it because they're trying to make history. I'm not necessarily saying I'm against the women being in a cage or Hell in a Cell, so don't hate me for that. But this story, no, it doesn't belong in Hell in a Cell. Now, a lot of people can make it, like I said, the argument that Sasha and Charlotte have an intense rivalry and you have to sell it inside Hell in a Cell. Okay, I'll buy that. But they've not really told that story, and there's not really been interference for Hell in a Cell. So, no, I don't believe it belongs in Hell in a Cell. But I'm going to say the main factor, you have Sasha Banks. She is the champion right now. It's in her hometown of Boston. Usually that's good. But
over the years.
Over here lately, you look at what just happened in Minneapolis. We had Curtis Axel. He lost in his own hometown. A lot of people are losing their own hometown. I'm very worried for Sasha Banks not keeping the title. And what you mentioned, Charlotte has a winning streak alive on pay-per-view.
12-0.
So, I mean, are we going to see that broken? And I'm really hoping we don't see that broken. I don't want to see Charlotte as champion because, quite frankly, I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. I'm over this feud. I've seen it so much. It's almost, I don't know if this is a good comparison, but it's the Randy Orton-John Cena. They fought so much that I'm just tired of it. I'm like, move on.
So, in other words, new competitors and new contenders should be rising up.
Yeah, and that's the problem with Raw's women's division. This has been a comparison made by several people, all that do podcasts or talk about wrestling, and I totally agree with them. The women's division on SmackDown is a lot better than the one on Raw. Because on SmackDown, any woman you could believe could go after Becky Lynch's title. On Raw, it's been Charlotte or Sasha, maybe Bayley, maybe Dana Brooke. They've not built up Nia Jax. They've not built up Foxy. If Paige would get her head on straight, that'd be another person there. So they've crapped the Raw's women division, and that I don't care about it. And that's why I think we've seen so much Charlotte and Sasha, because their women's division, quite frankly, sucks on Raw. And I hate to say that because as the Charlotte and Sasha, I loved in NXT. I think they're great performers. So stop hating on me if you're giving me hate for what I just said, Ed. But I'm just tired of seeing this match. I want it to end, and maybe Hell in a Cell will put an end to this feud. But I'm going to pick Sasha Banks just because of the hometown factor. Now, here's the thing. We're going to conclude this match with this. Does it main event? Because Mick Foley announced on Facebook and then later retracted that this was going to be the match to close the show. Do you think this match deserves it, and do you think it will happen?
It deserves it, no question. Like I said earlier, it goes back to dominating storyline. It's a sports logic that I've learned over 25 years, and that sports logic exists. And I'm pretty sure Paul Heyman and a lot of other sports guys will agree with me with the following statement that I'm about to make. Dominating storylines, if done properly, dominating storylines close the show. Period. Your best storyline that hasn't gotten a whole lot of stuff dominates and close the show. I say this could be the one that closed the show. Unless the only reason this could not close the show will be if you have something else that happens in the other title match, the Universal title match that we will talk about. Other than that, if nothing happens in that title match, then this one should close. Will it close? 51.49% yes. That's my opinion.
Okay.
What do you think?
With it, well, I think it will close. The way the rumors have been talking, Vince McMahon has final say, and he says no, he doesn't want the women to close. Oh, so no, I don't think it. The reality is, I don't think it will close. Does it deserve to? My opinion, no. Just for the simple fact of just because you can say it's a dominating storyline. And I guess I could kind of agree with that, but to me, it's not about the dominating storyline, it's what the biggest draw is. Now, a fact was stated that like about 40% of the audience, wrestling audience, was women. Well, let me flip that. What does that mean? 60% would be men. So therefore, the majority is still a male audience. So I think the Universal title should close the show. That's what traditionally closed the show, is the main championship of that. So, I think it should close the show just because it is the main championship. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're just saying that because it's a gender. No. Who's the biggest draw here? If you watch WrestleMania, are you watching WrestleMania for the women? Or are you watching it for the men? The biggest draw is the guys. And the majority is going to say that the guys are the biggest draw. And you just have to do that. Now, the women, I think they will steal the show. They have the possibility of stealing the show. But do they deserve to close the show? Maybe not right now. Maybe in the future, yeah, they will. That's a possibility. We've talked about it before. But I don't think realistically they're going to close the show.
But do you also realize that this will be if they close the show, big if, do you realize that if they close the show, it'll be the first time that a women's championship match between those two have closed a pay-per-view and a Monday Night Raw in two major cities.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the significance once it's history making, but just because it's history making, does that mean we should do it? That's my rhetorical question.
Andre the Giant and Hogan was historic, but as far as match quality goes, no, it wasn't the best match on the show, even though it closed.
Yeah, so you see my point. Just because something is historic does not mean it needs to close the show. But let's move on. I'm sure I'm getting a lot of hate when this goes out.
Well, it doesn't matter. This is a wrestling podcast. We're basing our opinions here. So what? Let them base. Let them voice in. Hey, we got contact information that you can reach us on. Yeah,
which we'll give at the end of the show, and I hope we get feedback. I want to hear you guys' feedback on this. That's what I've been trying to get you guys to do, so please do it. But let's move on. Roman Reigns, Rusev. Do they belong? It's a U.S. title. Do they belong in the Hell in a Cell? This is the first match announced for Hell in a Cell, so does this match belong in Hell in a Cell?
I'm about to get a lot of flack for what I'm finna say.
So, you're going to get heat for this. Awesome, goody. I can deflect it on you now.
Well, because of the fact that I'm just going to go ahead and voice my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and say that this match is a whole lot of junk. It's a bunch of garbage, okay? A bunch of garbage. It's uninteresting. For one, you just had a title match. That bottom line, granted, y'all had matches better than this one, okay? That's just facts. You've had matches better than this one. This match is a bunch of garbage. Why in the world is this match in a Hell in a Cell? I will never know. It's a stupid idea. No, I mean, I'm really going to go ahead and say it. It's a stupid idea. WWE needs to be slapped upside the head for this. Or either somebody pours a little male Budweiser on their faces and really pollute their brains in order to finally help them realize that, hey, this is not working here. It's stupid. It's garbage. It doesn't belong in Hell in a Cell. In fact, this match belongs on a Monday Night Raw or house show. That's how I feel.
Wow. Well, to answer your question, I know why it's in Hell in a Cell. 2 words. Roman Reigns. Vince McMahon is still trying to push him as the main event, although he's the United States champion. And he gets off on big guys, so that's
He's
why...
getting the Triple H treatment.
Yeah, that's why Roman Reigns and Rusev are getting in Hell in a Cell. It's so he can pleasure himself. I'll just put it that way. I don't want to be too graphic or gross on here. I want people to... Family-friendly show here. But
No,
that's...
he enjoys pain. That's the terminology.
Yeah, but I agree. There's like what I said with the women. There's not really a real reason why that this match belongs in Hell in a Cell. They've not been out of control, and it's not just been the feud's not been so intense, or for the safety of the fans or stuff that it belongs in Hell in a Cell. There's no reason for it to be in Hell in a Cell in the first place.
Yeah, Raw
so
or
I agree.
house show.
Hey, and this match, like I said, I don't care about. I'll go ahead and give my prediction. Reigns is keeping the belt, and he's going to move on to someone else. So, what's your thoughts?
I really don't care for the match because, like I said, the match is a bunch of garbage.
What's your predictions?
I'll go Roman Reigns just for the sake of keeping the title. I'll go Roman Reigns. But the only way that this match will ever be saved, the only way, is for something drastic to happen in that match. I don't care if the lights go out in Boston. I don't care if the lights go out in the Garden. Something drastic needs to happen in order to catch the attention of both of them and say, oh, the match sucks. Give me a new contender. Somebody rise up. Please, I'm begging the whole entire WWE roster. Somebody step up and end this nightmare.
Okay. Well, let's finish this off with the Universal title match. Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, it's inside Hell in a Cell. Does this match belong inside Hell in a Cell?
This one I have slight mixed emotions about. For simple fact of this. Rollins was in Hell in a Cell before. And of course, with that long, drawn-out series with Ambrose, which literally had me confusing. Am I watching Dusty Rhodes matches here or what? Seriously, it's almost like every single time that Rollins is in a match. Especially Hell in a Cell match, which closed a pay-per-view, as you know. It did not do so well. Because they expected Rollins to just come off with hot spots. Kevin Owens dominates. He will dominate. The only miracle I see happening here, the only miracle I see happening here for Rollins is if Triple H or any version that will get Rollins distracted comes in and interferes. Or the Y2J factor. Because that's the wild card of this whole thing, Y2J. Otherwise, I got Kevin Owens dominating. I got Kevin Owens winning. I'm taking it to the bank. Kevin Owens wins. He retains the title. Believe it or not, he has not lost a cage match. Here's the stat. He hasn't lost a cage match since 2010. KO all the way.
Yeah, pretty good odds you just said there. I'm picking KO. Now, in terms of this being in Hell in a Cell, I'm on the fence about it. I can justify
Kinda
it.
like me?
I can justify it being in Hell in a Cell, but then again, I can say, why do you have this in Hell in a Cell? The only reason I can say, yes, it belongs in Hell in a Cell is if you go back, Clash of Champions, and the finish the way it was. You had Chris Jericho coming out and trying to help Kevin Owens retain the title over Seth Rollins. So,
right.
Well, once again, I go back to my reason to have a cage match or a solo match, just to keep people out. And you had even the Stephanie thing to where the ref went down doing that. So it could be a fair match and a fair fight. So I could justify it that way, that it belongs in Hell in a Cell. But the rivalry has not really been intense enough to where I think it belongs inside Hell in a Cell. So that's why I'm on the fence. I can say yes on one hand because of what happened at Clash of Champions, but then the rivalry's not been intense enough to where I feel it's because the Hell in a Cell, like I've said, it's a blow-off match. It's intended to end a feud. They've not had a blood feud here. Seth Rollins is more upset with Stephanie and Triple H than he is at Kevin Owens.
Thank you.
I mean, and it's almost like scratching my head. It's almost like the title's secondary to him or something.
Well, maybe I should ask you this question, since we both given our opinions on what does belong in Hell in a Cell and what doesn't belong. If Kevin Owens was not the Universal Champion, or even if he was, who would his best opponent inside Hell in a Cell be? If it wasn't Seth Rollins. Because I got my answer. I'll ask you.
I don't know if I want to say Finn Balor. Because with Balor being out hurt, I don't know if that would be his best opponent. I'm trying to really scan. I'd love to see him with Brock Lesnar. That would be cool. But I don't know. Maybe Finn Balor because they've had good matches. So maybe Finn Balor.
I would go with his personal nightmare since December.
You're saying Sammy, yeah. Sami Zayn.
To me,
if they did a Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, that would belong in Hell in a Cell.
To me, that's the match that should belong there. If no Seth Rollins in the picture, in the title picture. If Sami Zayn was in the championship picture, and if since literally they have unfinished business anyway, you really haven't closed that chapter yet. It should have been closing, or I say it should go in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, and I totally forgot about that because Sami Zayn's being mishandled. They're throwing him to Braun Strowman, which I'm like, why?
They've been throwing him too many curveballs.
You're going to job him out to Braun Strowman because you obviously want to keep Strowman looking strong. So, but yeah, I agree with those two going to Hell in a Cell. But we're going to close the show out. We've ran long, but this has been interesting. I hope you listeners have enjoyed listening to it. But as always, where can people find you on the interweb, social media?
Social media, at Twitter, you can find me at Chris Heineken 1. Also, Friday nights, if you like sports broadcasting and commentating and all that, or if you just like wrestling shows, Friday nights I'm in Osceola, Arkansas. 1098 West Kaiser is the hottest place on Kaiser Street. MCW, Mid-Southern Championship Wrestling. The tradition continues since 1993. I'm there every single Friday night. Saturday nights, I'm in Hoxie, Arkansas. Out of Control Wrestling. 609 Southeast Gibson. Of course, I do a Syndicate television show there with them on Sunday nights and, of course, Tuesday nights backups. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on social media. Where can everybody find you on social media? That way, hey, they can ring our nets or something.
Yeah, I know. You can tweet me on Twitter at Robert Red Jr. So I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of voice of opinions off of what I said with the women's match. So hit me up on Twitter at Robert Red Jr. You can find me on Instagram, Robert Red Jr. I do have a Patreon campaign to where if you want to donate financially to the show, it's on there. As always, I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/YouTube or /the Robert Red, and expect some videos here that I'm going to mention after I get done. I'm also on Facebook. If you want to hit me up on Facebook, if you're on social media, it's Robert Lee Red Jr. I believe on there, or maybe Mark Wonders 85. It'll be in the link on the SoundCloud that this podcast will be posted. But I want to kind of do some maintenance. First off, I want to thank C3 Bricks Cody for allowing me a mosaic that I have here in our studio, and it's of Daniel Bryan. I'm going to be making a video.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good work. Eric, I'm going to be making a video more to tell you more about him and kind of how I want it in my journey to getting the mosaic. And you can follow him on Instagram or on Twitter at C3 Bricks. It's BRIX. So definitely check it out. You're going to check out my YouTube channel, and I'll tell more about it. Also, to finish this off, the Power Pro Wrestling is going to be coming back on a limited run basis. It's going to be next month. So for Survivor Series, we are going to do something similar to the prediction show, but it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be more in the Power Pro Wrestling format. To be looking for that. I'm hoping to have a special guest, and if you check my Twitter, you can kind of get the hint of who I'm going to have as my special guest. I got to confirm that, and hopefully it's going to happen and go through, but I just wanted to take the time and say Thank you to Cody, C3 Bricks, on Twitter, and also let you guys know about the return of the Power Pro Wrestling podcast. But for Robert Red, the host, thank you for joining me, Mr. Heineken. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been awesome, and I'll tell you something else I'll tell you a couple other people you need to be thanking. You need to be thanking the Repost Network. But also, thank the fans.
Yes, thank you guys for listening and supporting this. So definitely thank you.
And we do encourage you to please, and I'll get on my hands and knees and begging you please for pork and beans. Please weigh in on this conversation. Who do you think should win? Did we hit the nail on the head with some of the comments that we made? Did we not hit the nail on the head? We want your feedback.
Yes, most definitely. But this has been Robert Red for the Power Pro Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time.
See ya!
And this podcast is brought to you by the Repost Network. Repost Network. Monetize your SoundCloud content. Sign up today at repostnetwork.com.